You know, one of the things that I think about a lot is how busy our lives can become sometimes. Like we already have our responsibilities and our obligations that we things that we have to do every day. But there are other things we take on, and I know just as well as you know that we sometimes tend to take on far too much. One of my more recent videos was titled Clean Your Room, and in the video I talked about what I think is the importance of essentially fixing yourself before trying to fix someone else, or before trying to solve someone else's problems, or to solve the whole world's problems. You know, I talked about before trying to grapple with complex situations, you need to sort yourself out first, because you'll end up, what I think is, you'll end up doing more harm than good. And in the video I talked about doing more simple things. I think I said things like, instead of, I don't know, going and writing, sitting down and writing an entire novel, go and wash the dishes or something like that. You know, it was small things like that, and I talked about how these were the building blocks. Now, that video was probably the time where I spend the most time talking directly about what I'm going to talk about in this video, but I haven't quite hit the, what do they call it? Hit the nail on the head yet, as I'm going to in today's video, and this is about going back to the basics. To me, what constitutes the basics are the most fundamental things, and like I said, I somewhat touched on them in that recent video about cleaning your room, but this is the most fundamental things that we can do for ourselves. Are the things that I believe need to be our number one priority. Some examples I give about the basics in life are as simple things, and you can probably guess what I'm going to say. Simple things like eating right, watching what we're eating, watching our diet, making sure that we're serving our bodies by eating food that will help us in the long run. Fitting in sometime every day, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's a light walk around the neighborhood, or it's a few push-ups or a few sit-ups. Fitting in some time every day to exercise every day. Doesn't mean you have to go to the gym and, you know, sweat for an hour or two, but something little, some light form of cardio, some light form of calisthenics or weightlifting, something, right? Something to get your body moving, even if it's just stretching for 10 minutes, you know, or some yoga for 10-15 minutes, whatever you want to do, but some form of exercise every day. Taking care of your hygiene, making sure you're showering regularly, brushing your teeth, flossing, you know, you're taking care of your hair, you're making sure that you can present yourself in a respectable manner to the world every day. How about a morning routine? You know, for example, I'll use what I do is I wake up in the morning and I stretch, I do some push-ups, I drink 8 ounces of water, I make my bed every morning, things like that in the morning routine. It helps me get ready for the day, and also what it really helps me do, what this is really helpful, is it kickstarts my productivity for the rest of the day. Because if I can get this conquered, and actually like the hardest thing to do is to, out of the whole routine that I have, which doesn't take me more than 15 minutes, the hardest thing for me to do is to make my bed. And that takes a minute or 2 minutes, but it's the hardest thing for me to do. But if I can do that in the morning, it creates that momentum that is pretty hard to stop once you get the ball rolling. So if I can check the box off on my morning routine, it's already kickstarted my productivity for the rest of the day. It really ups my chances that I'm going to continue to get things done the rest of the day. Whereas if and I've done this plenty of times, where I slack off and like lay in bed and don't get up to do my routine till 11 or, you know, or noon or something like that, I have a much less chance of getting anything done in the day. And the nightly routine doesn't quite serve the same purpose, because you're not trying to kickstart your productivity to go to sleep, of course. The nightly routine instead is to do the opposite. It's to help you wind down. So some of the things in my nightly routine are kind of similar. I do some stretches again before going to bed and drink some water. But I also make sure that my sleeping environment is optimal for a good night's rest. And it's nothing complicated. It's making sure your room is clean enough so you can sleep, making sure you've got things off your bed so you can sleep well. Like these are simple things I'm talking about. They're not complicated things. They're things that I think everyone should be doing for themselves, you know. It's Meditating, you could try that. You don't have to, of course, but that's an example of something I do for my nightly routine is I take 10 or 15 minutes to meditate. And I only do 10 to 15 minutes because meditating is hard. It doesn't sound hard on paper. I don't know, one of the simplest things you can do. To sit somewhere and that's it. Just sit. But actually, it's one of the hardest things that I think, at least personally for me, that I can do. Because we're going all day, and then suddenly we put the brakes on and we have nothing to do. I always feel good when I have something to work on, and then all of a sudden, I'm just sitting there. Nothing to do. Whether it's my eyes open or closed, regardless, I'm sitting there. It's in complete silence, in complete darkness in my room at night, and I have nothing to do. And all these thoughts come racing in my head, of course, and try to clear my mind, and it helps for sure. But that's like one of the hardest things to do, but it helps me calm down and unwind. So that's some of the basic fundamental things I'm talking about. When I talk about stripping back the more complex parts of our lives and focusing on the fundamental building blocks that everything else, it's the foundation that everything else sits on. Because I believe if you're not, look, this is all about taking care of yourself properly, right? If you're not fitting in some form of exercise every day, if you're not letting yourself have some time to devote to a hobby every day that you like, if you're not spending some time reading something or learning something, if you're not spending a little bit of time every day focusing on your hygiene and your personal health, not spending some time making good meals for yourself or tracking your progress with your diet, making sure that your sleeping environment encourages a good night's sleep or establishing some kind of morning routine, things like that. These are the really simple things. They're basic things, of course, but these are the really important things for people, I think. For myself, they're very helpful because I really do believe that these things they're the cornerstone for everything else. They're the foundation. If you don't have these things, I believe it makes it very hard to work on anything else. It makes all the external things going on in our life, all the responsibilities that we pick up and the things that we're trying to work toward, all of our goals and the habits we're trying to stick to, it makes those things a lot harder if we can't fall back on these basics. So my advice is to master the basics, and then you'll master everything else.